Could you build software if you've never written a line of code? What if someone's ability to communicate depended on that software? That's exactly the position Ari found himself in. His brother Ben has a rare neurological condition that left him unable to speak or move, communicating only through head movements, yes and no. The medical device industry had no solutions that worked, and so Ari, with zero programming experience, turned to AI and built something incredible. Not only did it work, it unlocked thoughts and questions that Ben hadn't expressed in years. This is the conversation that might change how you think about who can build software and why it matters. So Ari, thank you first off for taking the time to talk with us today. I wanted to start off by asking, how did you first find yourself on the vibe coding subreddit?
Well, that's a interesting one. Actually, when I got there, it wasn't specifically to peel any knowledge from anyone. It was mostly for promotion of what I thought was a good use case. And I thought maybe people could be motivated and inspired by something I had built. And I'll be frank, going through that subreddit, nothing from the subreddit at the time was something that I was vibing with myself, because I had a very specific, very narrow use case for vibe coding. And I thought maybe if I can give some information to some people out there, maybe it would hit the right person who might know someone like my brother. Maybe it would help them out. That was it.
Well, what you shared definitely resonated with a lot of people in the community. Let's talk a little more about your specific situation. Honestly, it is like one of the most compelling use cases for vibe coding that I've ever seen. Can you walk us through it? What led you to need to create software using natural language?
I have a younger brother named Ben, and Ben has a rare condition called TUB4A related leukodystrophy. And it affects the myelin sheath in the brain. Don't have to get into the specifics about it, but it's a progressive disease. He went from walking and talking and using his hands to slowly becoming a nonverbal quadriplegic. And he's 29 now, and that's where he is. He can turn his head left and right, and that's about it. And during the pandemic, his health got really bad. He lost a lot of weight. He had some seizures. He needed a feeding tube. He didn't have one at the time. And, because it was the pandemic, staffing and things like that were just not where they needed to be. And my parents were aging out of his care. So because it was the pandemic, my wife and we moved across the country for jobs that she was taking as a respiratory therapist. And we got lucky and we landed at a hospital near Ben. So we saw his condition, started advocating for him, tried to just improve his life the best we could. So we got him a feeding tube, we were doing therapies with him, and he slowly started coming back to life. His seizures went away, he gained a bunch of weight, he just seemed happier. And we realized our place wasn't traveling around for the pandemic, was a chore on its own, but our place was here. Initially, we wanted to just go back to the West Coast, but we realized being on the East Coast was the move. So we bought a home here in New England, and we renovated it for my brother. And we gave him the opportunity to come stay with us on the weekends after he got better and all that stuff. And we were giving him a really high quality of life at our home, and he decided he wanted to stay with us full time. So during this time, again, Ben is only saying yes and no with head movements. So he, can't do much except us ask him yes and no questions, and that was it. He got tube fed. We were doing everything for him, right? We were changing his TV stations. We were playing games with him. We were, trying to figure out what he wanted by asking yes and no questions constantly. And it was just, it was really upsetting. You figure there should be software, there should be technology out there that exists to give him some freedom and independence. And we couldn't find anything that really worked for him. My thought was maybe I can motivate him a little bit and get him to want to use some software. I discovered that he could use two buttons attached to his headrest, to left and right, since he says no with left movements, yes with right movements. I figured he could have a scan and select method on either side of his head, and we could create software or get software created that was very simple, that would have yes and no, maybe a few phrases and stuff. And we had that created and developed by a nonprofit who develops custom software, and that's the Speak Your Mind Foundation. Shout out to them. They helped us tremendously in the beginning. And it started off very cool. It was like, Ben used it for the first time, and he was so excited because it was like he could press a button and something happens, right? I mean, he used to be able to use a remote to change channels. He used to play video games and stuff. So it was like 10 years since he had really been able to do something like this. So it was like amazing to see him light up when he was now able to click a button and something would happen. So it started with just a phrase board. It went from like 4 phrases to 9 and then to 64. It was good for a while. We used it for about a year, and it was used seldomly. It was used when we were out in public or when he needed to, ask us to change a channel or something if he was watching TV. And the problem is it took up his whole tablet. It's not like he could do anything with it. So it was just a phrase board on his tablet, and it wasn't great. Yeah, that's what sparked me to start vibe coding a solution for him, and that's what I did.
The assistive technology industry is usually pretty comprehensive. I know there's like a ton of funding and development in that space, but it sounds like the existing solutions just weren't meeting Ben's specific needs. Before we get into what you built, can you tell me about your background? Like, did you have any programming experience at all before this?
So my background is video production, and I had a small time as a help desk, a phone jockey at a help desk, but I had no prior experience to programming, software development, none of that. I was like, I knew my way around a computer, but that's about it.
I think this is important to highlight. So there are people that argue that vibe coding just can't produce, quote, real software. But you've built something that Ben uses successfully, right?
He uses it every day, all day almost.
That is incredible. Every day, all day. That's real world validation, man. So when did you first realize that AI could potentially help someone without having any background with software engineering to create actual software?
I don't know exactly where it was, but it might have been on Reddit. It might have just been like browsing and maybe seeing like Chat GPT coding, one of those subreddits, not necessarily the vibe coding subreddit, but it might have been on there. But the idea was that I knew that there was an idea that it could write code. And that was really all I needed, was that if I can't do it, not that I can't do it, if I don't have the expertise currently, could I use my natural language to tell AI to create something for me? And that it was just a spark, and it was just an idea. It wasn't even, I had no idea what it was capable of, clearly.
Okay, so the software you built, Ben's software, as you call it, can you walk me through how it actually works? What exactly can Ben do with it?
So building off of that first piece of software we got from the Speak Your Mind Foundation, I'll just tell you how it evolved a bit. It went from a phrase board of sorts to a panel of TV shows and movies. And those TV shows and movies, he could click on, and he can actually pull up his favorite movies and shows. He loves Spider-Man. So that was one of the first things we showed, was he could click on Spider-Man and watch it himself. And it evolved from that. I was like, well, how can I make it so that way he can have, all of his shows, 300 now that he has on there. So it's this spreadsheet run software that opens up. When you open up the software, basically he has an emergency button. He has a settings button, so he can access the computer settings now. It does volume controls. It's basically an operating system helper to a degree. It has a communication area where I built like a custom keyboard that he can use, where he can type, and it has predictive text. He has a phrase board in there as well. So if he wants to say something quickly, he can go to that. And then most importantly, it has an entertainment area. So those are the 4 things you can initially see. Just a side note on this, which I think is really powerful, might make me emotional. Ben has never asked a question like, hey, what's the weather going to be like outside? That's just not something that he would have done. He's dealing with his own stuff. Losing all of his abilities. It's like when someone's doing everything for you, you kind of lose that. But now he's doing things like asking what the weather is, and then asking us, going into his keyboard and asking, hey, can we go for a walk today? I've never heard him say this to us ever in my life. Yeah, so it's like he's saying things that even when he could talk, he wasn't saying. So it's incredible. It's every day it's something new.
That's wow. That is really powerful, man. The fact that he's asking questions that he'd never asked before, even when he could speak, that's incredible. Um, so now that you've achieved this like breakthrough for Ben, I'm curious about your thoughts on the bigger picture. Um, where do you hope this technology and these communities go from here? Like, what would you like to see happen?
It's only going to be as good as I don't want to say the weakest link, but it's only going to be as good as the lowest common denominator, right? Like who can use this, well enough to be able to do the things that my brother can do, and it needs to go beyond just you and I, sitting down and typing something on a keyboard to get something produced for us. Like we should be using this to be helping people and lifting people up, right? If all we're doing is using this and escalating the people who, understand it and know where it's going, we're going to be leaving so many people behind, and we can't be leaving those people behind. People like my brother, they deserve to be heard. So it's like, we need to be using this stuff to think about those people and the people who really need it. For me, it's like, for us to be a better society and to be better people, we need to have people like my brother in mind all the time. I feel like that's just what we need to do. And I think that that's how we build a more accessible society. And that's how we can build a more, inclusive society. And that's really what I want.
I'm sure a lot of people watching this right now are feeling inspired. I am feeling inspired, and might want to help in some way, whether that's with this project specifically or similar initiatives. What's the best way for people to get involved with this? How can they contribute their skills or their time?
So for our community, we specifically are just a family on social media currently, but we just started a nonprofit, and this nonprofit is it's designed to do exactly what I'm doing for my brother, and it's to try to get more people involved. And it's a lot of caregivers and developers and vibe coders just come together and find the gaps and try to fill those gaps, whether it's with vibe coding or someone who's a professional developer, it doesn't really matter. But the fact we have vibe coding that can help us along the way, and even if it's not like a perfect fix, a Band-Aid fix, if you will, a short-term fix, it can mean the world to someone. So we have this community that we're putting together to give those solutions. And so the community and what we're called is Narby House. It's on everything. That's NARBE House. That's on all of our social media platforms. We have a narbyhouse.com and a narbyfoundation.org coming out soon. And the whole idea is to just build a community of builders who can help people out. There's a lot of people out there who come to us now, and we built a social media following. They come to us now and they ask how they can get Ben's software. And, I point them to a GitHub location, but they're not technical. So the idea is to excite caregivers and excite people about what they could potentially build themselves. And I know there's a lot of tools coming out, and AI is only getting better. So we should be able to get these people, tools that just don't exist currently that they can build to make a difference in their loved ones' lives or their own lives.
The nonprofit approach to accessible software, it has a rich history. But in my experience, the bottleneck has always been resources, basically, like time, money, especially people with technical skills, which has previously been rare. And I think what's really exciting about your story, man, is just you're a good example of how vibe coding completely changes that equation. It's opening the door up for so many more people to contribute directly to creating solutions like this. And I want to emphasize something for everyone watching. If there's something in your life or someone else's life that could be improved with software, and you think you can't build it because you don't code, Ari's story proves otherwise. Okay, so for anyone that wants to follow along or help, their social media handle again is Narby House. That's NARBE House. I know you can find them on Instagram. Definitely check them out. And the work that you're seeing here You're going to see more of that on that account. It's super worth following. Ari, man, thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hey, quick note after we wrapped filming, Ari moves so quickly to execute on this vision. He's actually been able to get that foundation website up. So if you would also like to plug into the bigger picture, in addition to social media, do check out narbefoundation.org. It's a very nice looking website, probably vibe coded, but that is the way to like follow the big picture about what this means, both for his family and also for the broader medical community. Thank you very much for tuning in. This was an amazing conversation. Stay tuned. We're going to try to bring you more inspiring and awesome vibe coding stories in the future.